We are used to seeing prisoners behind bars, but what happens when billionaires end up there too? Turns out, money can't always save you. From scams to even murder, some of the world's richest are now locked up. Here are the billionaires serving serious time. She wasn't born into it. Elizabeth Holmes didn't inherit billions. She built the illusion of billions brick by lie. With her deep voice, black turtlenecks, and Steve Jobs-style charisma, Holmes convinced the world she had created a revolution in healthcare. Her company, Theranos, promised to test for hundreds of diseases using just a single drop of blood. No needles, no pain, just a small box that could sit on your countertop like a Keurig machine. That pitch alone turned her into the youngest self-made female billionaire in the world. By 2014, Theranos was valued at $9 billion. Investors lined up. Rupert Murdoch put in $125 million. Former US Secretaries of State sat on her board. Walgreens began rolling out in-store Theranos testing centers. Everyone wanted in on the future of blood testing, except the technology didn't actually work. Inside the labs, it was chaos. Employees who raised questions were pushed out or silenced with legal threats. The machines Holmes pitched so confidently, the Edison and later the Minilab, were unreliable at best and dangerously inaccurate at worst. In many cases, Theranos didn't even use its own tech. Instead, they secretly ran tests on third-party machines like Siemens analyzers while claiming it was all done with their magical box. And it wasn't just a white-collar fantasy, it became a public health risk. Real patients received false readings. One woman was incorrectly told she had a miscarriage. Another was falsely warned she had prostate cancer. There weren't just business missteps, they were life-altering errors. The collapse came fast. In 2015, investigative journalist John Carreyrou at the Wall Street Journal started asking uncomfortable questions. Whistleblowers came forward, the government took notice. Within a year, the house of cards crumbled. Walgreens ended its partnership, the FDA, SEC, and CMS opened investigations. By 2018, Holmes and her ex-boyfriend and former COO, Ramesh Sunny Balwani, were both indicted on multiple counts of wire fraud and conspiracy. Her trial became one of the most watched white-collar cases in years. The defense painted her as a young, ambitious woman who simply failed while trying to innovate. The prosecution showed a calculated fraud backed by emails, faked test results, and outright deception. In the end, the jury saw through the image. In November 2022, Elizabeth Holmes was sentenced to 11 years and 3 months in prison. She reported to a minimum security women's federal prison camp in Bryan, Texas. In May 2023, same month, she gave birth to her second child. Her once glass-walled world of venture capital meetings and TED Talks is now limited to headcounts, cafeteria lines, and early lights out. No labs, no startup jargon, just time. And what's left of Theranos? Nothing but lawsuits and cautionary tales taught in business schools. Elizabeth Holmes' story was about fake science, but the next billionaire's downfall? Straight-up corruption and cold cash. Joe Low was never supposed to be the face of a global financial scandal. He didn't build a tech empire or inherit an oil fortune. He just knew how to be in the right rooms with the right people. A smooth-talking Malaysian financier with a taste for spectacle. Low made his name by pulling strings behind the scenes, especially within Malaysia's political elite. His golden connection? Former Prime Minister Najib Razak, whose inner circle gave Low access not just to power, but to billions. That access led to the creation of 1MDB, the One Malaysia Development Berhad Fund, designed to boost Malaysia's economy through smart investments. Instead, it became one of the biggest financial crimes in modern history. Between 2009 and 2015, around $4.5 billion was siphoned from the fund. Not lost, not mismanaged, stolen, deliberately, systematically, and boldly. What Joe Low did with the money was something out of a surreal fever dream. He bought a $250 million super yacht named Equanimity. He purchased a New York penthouse once owned by Jay-Z and Beyoncé. He threw parties with Leonardo DiCaprio and gifted Miranda Kerr millions in jewelry. He even helped finance Martin Scorsese's The Wolf of Wall Street, a film about excess and corruption paid for with stolen public money. And while Malaysia's people dealt with rising debt and cost of living struggles, Jolo partied in Cairns, chartered private jets, and hosted gambling marathons in Vegas. The wealth wasn't just obscene, it was offensive. When investigators from the US, Switzerland, and Singapore started following the money trail, the truth came out. Authorities moved to seize his assets, including the yacht and a Picasso painting he had given DiCaprio. Arrest warrants were issued, but Jolo vanished. As of today, he remains a fugitive. Some say he's hiding in China under protection, others claim he's bouncing between safe houses in the Middle East. No one knows for sure. Interpol red notices are out, the US and Malaysian governments are still chasing him, but the man who once danced with celebrities now exists in silence, shadows, and sealed hotel rooms. His Instagram has been dark for years. Jolo may never see a jail cell, but he lives like a man already imprisoned. Always watching the door, always listening for the knock. The walls may be invisible, but the cage is very real. Jolo may be hiding, but our next billionaire couldn't run fast enough from justice, and he's now behind real prison bars. Before the crash, Bernie Madoff was untouchable. He wore tailored suits, chaired Nasdaq twice, and rubbed shoulders with Wall Street's elite. His investment firm promised steady returns year after year, even when the rest of the market faltered. That was the hook: consistency in a world ruled by chaos. His clients believed in him not because of flashy promises, but because he made the unimaginable look safe. For over 4 decades, Madoff built the largest Ponzi scheme the world has ever seen. An estimated $65 billion passed through his hands. Money from retirees, universities, celebrities, and even foundations. People like Steven Spielberg, Holocaust survival Elie Wiesel, and the Wilpon family, then owners of the New York Mets, all had money tied up with him. Some lost everything. In the Wiesel Foundation's case, nearly all of its assets were wiped out. Here is how he did it. He never invested their money. Instead, he used the cash from new clients to pay fake returns to older ones. A cycle of deception masked by printed statements, phony trades, and spreadsheets that made it all seem real. He operated out of a separate, secretive floor in his Manhattan office, where a small team created false records on ancient IBM computers. No trades were ever executed, no profits were ever made, it was smoke and mirrors backed by blind trust. The crash came in 2008. When the financial crisis hit, too many clients wanted to withdraw at once. Over $7 billion in redemptions. Madoff couldn't keep up the illusion. He confessed everything to his sons, who turned him in the very next day. The arrest shook Wall Street. It wasn't just a fraud, it was a betrayal of the financial system's very core. In 2009, he was sentenced to 150 years in prison. A punishment designed not just to confine him, but to send a message. He served time at the Federal Correctional Complex in Butner, North Carolina. There, the man who once controlled billions spent his days in a gray jumpsuit, assigned chores like any other inmate. No more penthouses, no more Hampton Estates, no more yacht club lunches. Bernie Madoff died in prison on April 14, 2021 at age 82. Kidney failure ended what was left of a legacy already erased by greed. Today, his name is shorthand for the kind of fraud that doesn't just bankrupt banks, it bankrupts trust itself. Madoff's scam lasted decades, but our next subject made headlines fast with one of the darkest crimes on this list. Robert Durst wasn't just rich, he was born into one of the wealthiest real estate dynasties in New York City. His family empire helped build the Manhattan skyline, controlling billions in property through the Durst organization. But Robert was never the businessman his father or brother were. He was odd, withdrawn, and by the time most of Manhattan's elite were sipping cocktails in midtown boardrooms, Durst was already tangled in a maze of suspicion, paranoia, and death. In 1982, his wife Kathleen McCormack Durst vanished. She was a medical student, young, smart, and afraid of him. Her friends told police she had been planning to leave. Durst said she had gone back to school, and for years that was that. No body, no charges, but whispers lingered. Then came 2000 when his longtime friend Susan Berman was shot execution-style in her Los Angeles home. Susan had been a fierce defender of Durst over the years, especially about his wife's disappearance. She had secrets, some believe she knew too much. The timing wasn't subtle. Susan was set to speak with investigators just days later. In 2001, Durst went on the run. He shaved his eyebrows, wore wigs, and posed as a mute woman named Dorothy Slinner while living in a Texas boarding house. Then came the Galveston incident. Durst was arrested after dismembering his neighbor, Morris Black, and dumping the body parts in Galveston Bay. He admitted to killing Black but claimed self-defense. Incredibly, he was acquitted. He walked out of that courtroom a free man, but the past kept creeping back. Years later, HBO's docuseries The Jinx tried to make sense of Durst's bizarre life. He agreed to participate, likely believing he could once again outsmart everyone. What he didn't realize was that the filmmakers had found a key piece of evidence: a letter linking him to Berman's murder. Then, in the final episode, a hot mic caught him muttering in the bathroom, unaware it was still recording. "What the hell did I do?" he said. "Kill them all? Of course." That moment sealed it. In 2021, Robert Durst was convicted of murdering Susan Berman. The verdict came decades too late for some, but it finally brought a piece of justice to the trail of destruction he left behind. He was sentenced to life in prison. Just a few months later, in January 2022, he died behind bars, ravaged by cancer. From a whispered confession to a life sentence, Durst's story stunned the world. Now let's talk about someone who used tech power to cover up abuse and fail. Harvey Weinstein didn't just produce films, he shaped the culture. For decades, if your movie had the Miramax logo on it, it had a shot at the Oscars. Weinstein co-founded the company with his brother Bob in 1979, and by the 1990s, he was pushing titles like Pulp Fiction, Shakespeare in Love, and Good Will Hunting into award season dominance. His power wasn't quiet, it was brutal, loud, and unchecked. In Hollywood, you didn't say no to Harvey. Behind the success, though, was something rotten. For years, whisper trailed him. Hotel meetings that weren't really about scripts, assistants warned never to leave actresses alone with him. Contracts with hush clauses, settlements signed in silence. It was an open secret until it wasn't. In 2017, journalists Jodi Kantor and Megan Twohy of the New York Times and Ronan Farrow of the New Yorker exposed decades of sexual assault, harassment, and predatory behavior. Their reports uncovered over 80 women who accused Weinstein of misconduct. Famous names like Ashley Judd, Gwyneth Paltrow, and Salma Hayek came forward, but so did dozens of women whose names had never graced a poster. Assistants, interns, young actresses with dreams crushed in hotel suites. The accusations followed a pattern: coercion, manipulation, intimidation. He used his wealth, his legal army, and the threat of career destruction to silence victims. And for years it worked, but the #MeToo movement erupted after his fall, with Weinstein's case becoming the rallying cry. In 2020, he was convicted in New York on charges of criminal sexual assault and third-degree rape, and sentenced to 23 years in prison. Then in 2022, a Los Angeles jury found him guilty again, this time for rape and assault against an actress in a Beverly Hills hotel, adding another 16 years to his sentence. He's now serving a combined 39 years, which for a man in his 70s with multiple health issues is effectively a life sentence. He's currently housed at the Mohawk Correctional Facility in upstate New York, a long way from the red carpets of Cannes and Sundance. The man who once stood behind the biggest names in Hollywood now faces his remaining years behind concrete walls and a prison-issued uniform. The Weinstein Company went bankrupt, his name was stripped from every building it once adorned, and his legacy reduced to a cautionary tale of unchecked power and the silence it buys until it doesn't. Weinstein was once untouchable in Hollywood, but our next case involves a cryptocurrency king whose empire crumbled overnight. Sam Bankman-Fried didn't look like a billionaire. Messy hair, gym shorts, video game addiction, he came off more like a guy crashing on your couch than the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar crypto empire. But by 2021, he was everywhere. Headlines called him the next Warren Buffett. He appeared in magazine covers, testified before Congress, and donated millions to political campaigns. At one point, FTX, the crypto exchange he founded, was valued at $32 billion. His net worth? Peaking at around $26 billion, all of it built in just a few years. But behind the public charm and nerdy brand was a system teetering on fraud. FTX wasn't just handling crypto trades, it was secretly funneling customer funds into a sister hedge fund called Alameda Research, also controlled by Bankman-Fried. Billions in customer deposits were rerouted, often without consent, to cover Alameda's risky bets. He promised transparency while moving money behind closed doors. He pushed for regulation while breaking rules no one even knew he had written for himself. The collapse came fast. In November 2022, a leaked balance sheet exposed holes in FTX's finances. Binance, a rival exchange and former investor, announced it would sell off FTX's token, sparking panic. Within days, FTX filed for bankruptcy. Over 1 million customers were locked out of their accounts, some losing life savings. Pension funds, venture capital giants, athletes like Tom Brady, and entire startups were wiped out. The ripple effect hit markets across the world. Bankman-Fried was arrested in the Bahamas in December 2022 and extradited to the US to face federal charges including wire fraud, securities fraud, and money laundering. The trial in 2023 was a media circus. He claimed mistakes but not malice, but the evidence told a different story. Coded messages, deleted records, and backdoor channels that gave Alameda unfair access to customer funds. In March 2024, he was sentenced to 25 years in prison. The judge called it a brazen betrayal of trust. Today, SBF is serving time in a federal facility far removed from the crypto conferences and celebrity endorsements he once bathed in. No more Twitter threads, no more League of Legends between meetings. Just time. His empire? Gone. Crypto was supposed to be the future, but now SBF is facing a very different reality. One without internet, crypto, or freedom. Which of these stories shocked you the most? Leave your thoughts in the comments.